With February approaching, we know you almond farmers are looking for the highest quality hives for your almonds. Rasmussen Farms out of Gustine, California work with beekeepers outfits throughout the United States to ensure that they always have adequate supply of colonies to pollinate. Contact Ethan Rasmussen today at 209-596-0047.
All right, guys. This is The Toast. I am Doug Brunner, and this is our second season, first episode. And I'm here with my buddy, my partner, Keith Yamamoto. We want to acknowledge everybody and tell them Happy New Year. We're hoping to be more consistent with The Toast this year and get you guys some cool stuff coming out from what the Ag Center's up to and all our good friends. And we have a bunch of new episodes coming, so stay tuned. And today's going to be fun because we're here with Honey Money, a.k.a. Ethan Rasmussen from Rasmussen Farms. And he is the bee man. So we're excited to listen to what he's got to say.
What's going on, guys? Good to be here.
Hey, Ethan, welcome, man. So, just to get it started, everybody, this is the time of the year when bees are the hot topic, obviously. Almond bloom. There's a lot of other things that we use the bees for here in California.
Right.
But, just starting out, I think it'd be good just to kind of give the basics of why we use bees in almonds for the listeners out there that don't completely understand it, and what work they do for us during almond bloom.
Yeah, so pretty much...
First, tell us who you are.
Well, I'm Ethan Rasmussen.
Thank you, Doug. You're right. Yeah. Sorry.
Besides a good-looking young man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Better looking than Josh Bonds.
Yeah, that is definitely.
I took his spot as most popular post. Ethan Rasmussen. I own Rasmussen Farms. We're a pollination company based out of Gustine. We specialize in almond pollination, obviously, because that's California's biggest crop. Second to dairy, right? I think, if I'm correct. But that's what we specialize in. And my dad's been doing bees for 40 years now. And when I graduated from Cal Poly, I was thinking about going into trying to be a PCA, but bees are in the blood, so I kind of started doing my own thing. And now we're doing almond pollination big time. So
yeah, I think that Thank you, Doug, for correcting me. And that reminds me of where we should probably start this is, you started, I actually knew about what you were doing because of one of Central's main guys, Greg Borba.
Right.
He had mentioned your name, 3-4 years ago.
Right.
And just tell us a little bit like the size that you started with.
Right.
And kind of how you've grown over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah. So, pretty much, a big thing that I do is I help connect out-of-state beekeepers with California almond farmers because we take, I think it's 2.4 million hives to do California's almond crop, and there's only 600,000 hives in California. So we need to bring in 1.8 million as of 2020 into the state to get the job done. So there's a huge demand for bringing these guys' bees in. And a lot of guys don't really have the capability to come out themselves and, find the connections, find the yards to do stuff, truck all their stuff out, so there's kind of a need for that. And so back to your original point, like 3 or 4 years ago, I kind of started out, I saw the opportunity of like, let's connect some out-of-state guys with in-state guys. So when I first graduated in 2017, I started out doing, I think it was about 2,000 hives. I run my own bees, but my contracted brokered bees, I did about 2,000 hives from Florida, helped them find a spot. And then last year I doubled or more than doubled, about 6,000. And this year we're putting in 13,000 hives. So
wow, man, congratulations.
Tripled the last 3 years. So we've been going pretty heavy.
Yeah. Trying
to grow, but not grow too big,
Ethan, do you guys have your own bees here?
Yeah. So
tell me real quick, the difference between your own bees and somebody else's bees. You're kind of brokering somebody else's,
right.
But where do your bees, you harbor your bees year round, and how does that work?
So, personally, our bees stay in California year round. Every beekeeping outfit's different, but for us, it's just kind of pencils out more. We farm a little bit too, so it kind of just makes more sense to stay here. A lot of guys are migratory; they'll be in California in the spring, and then starting in about June, they'll either truck them to the Dakotas or, other parts of the country to make a honey crop. So we stay in California year round. After almond pollination, we do cherry pollination, some berries, some melons and stuff in the summer. If we don't do melon pollination, we send them to the coast to make honey if we have a good wet year. But throughout the year, I run about 1,000 of my own hives. I'm looking to grow, but I think right now, the almond pollination and brokering aspect of it is something that's kind of a bigger opportunity and something I kind of want to put more of my focus in. So that's what I've been doing and kind of keeping my own numbers throughout the year, just kind of the same for right now.
So when you're getting, I know you're doing some hives for our farm right now. Like, what's the difference? Is there a difference between your bees and their bees, or you go back and inspect bees to,
right.
What confidence, what precautions, or what are you doing to guarantee that farmer, when you're telling me, hey, I got good bees from Florida,
right?
What have you done to really know that you have good bees from Florida?
So one thing that I did this year that's different from last year is I actually have a guy hired in Florida that is on the ground there as these bees are being loading up. He inspects and grades them the day they leave. So, because when you're trucking bees, say I have a beekeeper who, I know and they're good guys. Sometimes, they say, oh yeah, the bees are going to be 8 frame average for sure. And they hit the ground and that's not the case. And a lot of guys have that trouble. So that's kind of one thing I wanted to be a little bit different from some other brokers is have some boots on the ground in Florida, inspecting them, making sure. And as far as, quality, guys say they have great bees in quotes, but it's all about the frame count. So we're looking for 8 frame average hives, 6 frame minimum. That's kind of the standard contract. Some guys do 6 frame average, a little bit cheaper. Some guys do 10 frame average, 12 frame average with some bonuses and stuff. But I think the standard is 8 frame average with a 6 frame minimum.
So all hive boxes aren't created equal.
That's right.
So you're looking for the people out there that don't know a lot about beehives, I really don't know much about it myself. So it's all about the frames inside. And then is there any other type of quality or strength factors that you take into account when you look at inside the box?
Well, as far as the pollination and the almond grower is concerned, that's really the only metric you can use is frame count. But as the beekeeper, I'm going to look at some things that are going to affect colony health even after pollination. Like we're going to take some sampling and send to labs to see what our disease count is, what our varroa mite infestation is, see if there's any problems that we need to fix while they're in the almond bloom. So after, when we get ready for the honey crop, we can be prepared for that.
Right.
So that's kind of, as a beekeeper's management, like the whole year apart from almond bloom, like that's one thing that we're looking at is monitoring our diseases.
So you said frame. So for somebody who's not buying or renting bees from you, or explain just in a dummy proof way what a frame means.
So each box has, I'm going to do my best here, has 10 frames in it. It's the box, I think the dimensions are like 11 inches by 13-inch box. There's a little rim on the 11-inch side that has a little frame rest, so you can the frames just sit flush with that. They drop in. So you lift them in, and the bees will build comb on that, and that's what they'll use to store. They'll rear their young in it. They'll store honey. They'll store pollen. And we can manipulate that and take a frame out and look at it. And it's like the dimensions are just perfect. It's like, I think it's 1/8 of an inch, as they call it, bee space. It's like just perfect so that you can lift it out, but they don't build comb so that it gets stuck. It's just like the perfect design. So, using frames, we can just take a frame out and take an analysis of what's going on and then put it back together without really messing anything up and like busting open comb and whatnot. So, it's kind of hard to describe without a video or something. But
yeah, it makes sense. So a farmer, is there any advice you can give to a farmer whether it's you or them, how to inspect their hives? I know we personally inspect our hives.
Right.
Is there things we should be looking at?
I think the biggest thing, obviously, if you have a beekeeper you've been working with for a long time, usually there's a good amount of trust there, and you can have a pretty good communication. If it's a new guy, you should definitely have the bees inspected by like a third party, or if you know bees well enough yourself, go look at them. But I think the biggest thing I could say is just have an open line of communication with your beekeeper. I think there's a certain amount of like respect and trust that if I'm going to set my bees out, I want to know that you're grading them, because I'd like to be there when you do it. Or, it's kind of like your pride. You have, as a beekeeper, you have a lot of pride in your bees. So having them inspected is something kind of serious, because it's like, okay, this guy wants to make sure I brought something good, But as far as, advice for almond guys, I think it's just communication, letting the beekeeper know, hey, I'm going to inspect, and this is what on this date, and this is what I hope to see, and whatnot. So have an open line of communication with your beekeeper for sure.
Another dumb question.
Right.
I know how it works, but what does the bee do? What does the bee do that we're paying $200 and something a hive for? What is it doing for the farmer?
It's setting you a crop. It's setting you a crop for
How
sure.
How does it do it? What does that little buzzy bee do?
Goes and it's going to pick up pollen. That's their almond bloom is all about pollen. So pollen is the protein source for bees. Nectar is a carbohydrate. That's just their two essentials. So almonds produce a bunch of pollen. It's a really good protein source for bees, and they really get a good buildup off of it. So when almonds are in full bloom, the bees are just ripping it, bringing pollen in. Well, as they're doing that, they're spreading pollen between the two varieties. Say you got nonpareil, caramel, whatever other varieties you got. As the bees are working those, they're hopping from each variety. So they're bringing pollen from the male to the female, within that. And even like within independence too, you don't need as many bees, but you still need to have some activity within the flower so it can go from the male to female part within that flower. So that's, they're setting your crop.
Impregnating it.
That's right.
They're impregnating.
That's right.
And I've just learned recently that it's just a byproduct of they're not actually moving from flower to flower to move pollen. The pollen gets like stuck to their legs?
To their legs. Yeah. They call it the pollen baskets. They like gather it up and stick it like underneath their arms, so you could kind of liken it to, and bring it back to the hive. But as they're doing that, they're moving what the flower needs to get a nut set. Mm-hmm. And I mean, one thing we want to talk about, like bee flight hours. I was looking some stuff up before the podcast, and it was really kind of an interesting stat. I think we all know that like 2019 February was really wet and was like really crappy weather. And just looking through some statistics, you need about 80 good flight hours to set a decent crop. And last year we got 36 on average. Yeah, the average county got 36 hours. And a bee flight hour is like above 60 degrees, less than 10 miles an hour wind, and like less than 50% cloud cover. So when you ask, why do you need bees? It's because 2 hives in the acre, if it's a crappy year like it was last year, having those 2 hives, good strong hives, every hour counts. Mm-hmm. So they can go and forage. It's not, I think having good bees is not necessarily like, I mean, you need them every year, but you're not making that investment for the good years. You're making it for the bad years when, you have really crappy weather. It's like, you want the best bees you can out in the field setting that crop. Because if you don't, you're going to have nothing, and you're going to have a crop failure for sure.
Yeah, so you have that short window, so you need as much activity as you can within that short window.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, because my family's been farming almonds for 20 plus years, and literally last year, I think it was Lewis Gill from the Pollen Company was the one that explained to me how the bees actually pollinated the flower. And I'm embarrassed to say it that I didn't know that, but it's a byproduct of their other job that they're doing.
That's right.
That's right. It's pretty amazing.
What's your thoughts on pollen? I mean, you talked about pollen. What do you use in pollen for, Keith? Other than because there's people out there buying pollen right now, putting them on hives or spraying it. And Ethan, Keith, you can explain what you've done with that. What benefits you've seen from it or not. And Ethan, what experiences have you had? And if Keith, maybe you can touch base on it first.
Yeah. So, I mean, like what Ethan was saying, how important the pollen is to the almond nut set. Mm-hmm. The natural pollen created within the orchard is a finite amount, whatever that is.
Right.
So what we do, we work with the Pollen Company and Lewis Gill and Doug, and they harvest pollen and they store it and they keep the live pollen. So that way we can introduce, more pollen into the ranch so that the way the bees can help distribute that pollen. And then obviously then on top of that, we would mechanically apply that pollen. So that way we, for those bad years, right? For those years where you don't have a lot of bee flight hours, we can introduce more pollen into the field because that's the beginning of a good crop, and getting production. So I think it's a common, we're advancing in the almond business and in farming in general. So it's just more of a complement to the heavy lifting that the bees do.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly have zero experience with it, but I've talked to some other guys that say there's a couple different ways you can apply it. From what I've gathered, you can either do it like a spray or you can apply it within the entrances of the hives and the bees will pick it up when they're leaving. And I've heard that it gets the bees stimulated to go because they have a little bit, I mean, don't quote me on this, but it kind of they have a little bit of a dosage of that pollen. So it kind of, it presets them to forage that same type of pollen when they're out foraging. So they'll go right after the almonds, for sure. Yeah.
Instead of looking for,
I think it's a good investment for almond farmers for sure. It's just another tool in the chest. I think right now almonds, it's a great price, and anything you could do to increase your yield is gonna help your ROI. So I think it all starts with almond bloom for sure. So everything you could do for almond bloom is a win.
Yeah, we've done it both ways with introducing it at the hive, and the best way that I can put a value or see that it's working is you fill these trays on the entrance and exits of the hives, and then you come back 6-7 hours later and there's no more pollen left. So we know that it is getting out there. It's hard because you're looking at an acre, and we're putting 100 grams per acre, so it's fairy dust, right? But it's it's kind of, it's one of those things that's really hard to measure, or even quantify in your head, okay, 100 grams of pollen over an acre is a small amount. But we have done some test plots with it, and it's hard, like you said, I can't make a claim on it, obviously, but we have seen some increased production, more so last year with the bad weather than we did the year prior. That's but like you said, it's one of those things where you do make the investment on good years. You might not see as much of an effect, but on bad years, it's a little bit of a insulator cushion that you can give yourself.
Yeah.
Who really wants to count trees by hand? If you've ever wished for a more efficient alternative to clicker counting, Series Imaging has got some good news for you. Series Imaging offers varietal tree counting to save the time and expense of manual inventory so that you can focus on other aspects of your business. Contact Series Imaging today at 415-686-9264 or info@seriesimaging.net.
Ethan, this year's the first year I've planted self-pollinators, independents. I can't say I'm sold on them totally. They produce a good crop, and I know they got the Shastas, the Bennetts, and stuff like that coming out. From your, you were talking about putting bees out. What are you seeing with growers who have those, who are or aren't? I would say when I do it, I know I will put some amount of bees out on them.
So what I'm seeing is I think I have about 3 or 4 customers that have independents. You're one of them. They'll put about a hive an acre. So most guys put 2 hives an acre. Some guys will put half a hive for independents, and they have great yields. They're by far their highest producing field they got out of what they got. So I liken it to like a fertilizer. I think you can get a crop for sure on independents without bees, but you're gonna have a way higher yield if you put some bees out. And especially if you're in a spot where there's not a lot of almonds around and you have independents, you definitely need to put some bees out for sure. So, and I think independence, I think a big benefit of independence is not even just for like the bee side, but just the one shake, one harvest going through with the equipment one time, the simplicity of it, the early producing, the high yields on it. I think there's benefits for independence, not just for, the lower bee cost, but a lot of guys like it just for for the management perspective.
What do you see the future of bees? Every year I hear, and I haven't been farming almonds that long, so I'm no, expert. But every year I hear shortage of bees.
Yeah.
Shortage of bees. Okay. So we're planting more and more almonds. What's the future?
Well, last night I was texting you guys, kind of just what we were going to talk about. So this morning I kind of looked through some stuff, and, I came across the stat that, there's 300,000 as of today, there's 300,000 non-bearing acres. So that means in 3 years, if we're doing 2 hives an acre, say, we're going to need 600,000 more hives. And that is a pretty big task to bring 600,000 more. So the future is
some will come out. Some will come out.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
I wonder what percent of those are self-pollinators too.
Yeah, right. That's right. So, I mean, you could say anywhere between 300 and 600,000 hives will
Good.
need,
Okay. So what's going to happen?
I think that we'll get the job done. I think beekeepers are a hardworking group. I think almond pollination over the last 15 years, almond pollination has become the focus of, I'd say 90% of commercial beekeepers. So I think we'll get the job done. I think we're, everybody's gearing up. Everyone's increasing their numbers because we know that we need, there's money to be made in California. It's a symbiotic relationship between the almond growers and beekeepers. So I think we're going to get the job done. I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think beekeepers as a whole are a hardworking group. So we'll increase the numbers and we'll get the job done for sure.
Cool. Where's the toughest beekeepers from?
Los Banos, California.
Is that where you live?
No, but I know a lot of badasses in Los Banos.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Gustine, so I'm like Los Banos' little sister right there. But
Got it.
There's a lot of outlaw beekeepers in Los Banos for sure.
Got it.
Other than the demand other than the demand that the almond industry is creating, outside of just meeting demand, I've heard things, and I can't talk, I can't talk too much in depth of what they are specifically, but there's, like Doug was saying, there's been some issues with the bee pollination, with disease and stuff. Can you talk briefly about those struggles are? Right.
So, I mean, like we say, every year there's a shortage. That's true because almond bloom is like the beginning of the beekeeper calendar, right? So we're just coming out of winter. We're just finding out our losses. And that's why it's always such a volatile number, because we're just kind of going through our hives for the winter. So it's that's when we get our biggest losses. You don't have your losses in the summer, really. It all happens in the wintertime. So one of the biggest reasons why you'll have losses is there's a pest called the varroa mite, and it's a parasite. It's if you liken it to say that you were a bee, a varroa mite would be about a foot in size. So it's like they're covering the bees, and that's our biggest challenge. As far as
it's like a bee flea.
It's like a bee flea. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest challenge, is keeping the varroa mites under control, because they spread diseases. They spread different viruses, and they become resistant to treatments really fast. They reproduce really fast. So as a beekeeper, if you're a good beekeeper, you are a good manager of your varroa mite infestation. So that's one thing that we do, is each month we'll take samples and see what our counts are. So per 300 bees, you want less than 10. So we are constantly taking mite counts and seeing if we need to treat, and just changing our regimen up. But that's the biggest thing, I'd say. If you ask any beekeeper what your biggest challenge is, it's the varroa mite. So that's our biggest thing. And other than that, I'd say maybe nutrition, being able to feed your bees what they need in the fall. And
what do you feed them?
Pollen substitute and sugar syrup. That's our biggest thing. It's really expensive, but the bees definitely need it. Like I was saying, almond pollination is our the beginning of the beekeeper calendar. So coming out of winter, and naturally, bees are the clusters are usually pretty small, 4 frames, and in nature they're going to shrink down. So we need to stimulate them. So at the beginning of January, we'll go and feed them, and that's going to get them to stimulate and start growing. So that's kind of one thing that we do.
How long does a bee live?
Depends on the time of year. If it's like an almond bee is going to live like maybe 30 days if during like February, because they're going to work so hard flying that
So they work their ass off and then they die 30 days later.
That's right.
And how many babies do they have?
Well, the queen can lay 2,000 eggs a day at peak, and the average hive has like 60,000 bees in it. So
Wow.
So they're not rapidly producing though. So it's
you're gonna have there's gonna reach a point where in the springtime she's laying more than bees are dying, and your population's gonna grow. Starting now, the population's gonna grow.
What about her lifespan?
She'll live 2 to 3 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And all the rest of them live 30 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is the queen.
She is the queen, man.
She's like Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, but like, dude, I mean, I got to make sure I don't go off
the
on
Black
a tangent.
Widow.
Yeah,
The Black Widow.
Yeah.
I got to make sure I don't go off on a tangent because I could talk about bees for freaking hours.
Well, good. You should be able to. You're the master.
But no, queens are definitely the most interesting thing about bees, man. If like the bees, if she's like not laying correctly, the bees they'll just kill her and make a new one. Oh. It's like people think that like the queen runs the hive, but that's the other way around.
She's in power until she's
that's right.
Not in power
Julius
anymore.
Caesar, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
But
that's funny how nature is pretty consistent.
Yeah, nature's pretty ruthless, man. So
yeah, so something else I want to circle back. It's kind of tied to bees, but I brought it up a little bit earlier. But you know, the whole essence of the Ag Center, the whole essence of the podcast is young ag entrepreneurs. And if you could just talk a little bit about, you know, some of the struggles that you've experienced, some of the triumphs you've experienced in your growth, and, you know, what type of mentality that you have in order to stay on top of these things. Because, you know, you just shared with me earlier, you're starting work at 4 and you're ending at 4 p.m., ending at 4 a.m. this time of the year. So it's a grind. And then you're tripled in size, quadrupled in size over the last 3 years. So can you just talk to the audience about a little bit about what you've experienced as a young entrepreneur and the things that the hurdles and the triumphs that motivate you to keep going and growing?
Well, I think you just have to be able to, if you're going to start your own business, I mean, you pretty much have to be able to get like punched in the stomach and keep going because you're going to have struggles. It's going to happen. It's not going to be easy for sure. I mean, a lot of the struggles I've had is to be honest, is cash flow when you're starting out. You know, not to get into super details, but like my second year, I had one of my biggest growers, you know, not pay me my second half, and you know, it was hard. It was like okay, I had to make a choice of okay, am I going to double down and keep doing this business and hopefully, you know, make this profitable in the next year, or do I just kind of wrap it up? But I chose to keep going, and you know, now I got that straightened out, and now we're still rolling. So it's just having the decision that I'm going to do this come hell or high water, and you know, whatever obstacle comes in the way, I'm going to figure it out. So just put your nose to the grindstone. I think beekeeping, it's all about problem solving. You know, it's all about, okay, we got this is happening. Let's slow down. Let's think about what we can do and just get the job done no matter what. So yeah.
Great. Perseverance.
Yeah. Perseverance. Right. Yep.
You gotta be positive.
Gotta be positive, man. I was waiting for a bee pun. I knew it was going to come sometime. I knew it was going to happen.
Where does Ethan want to go? Where do you see yourself in the next couple of years?
I just want to keep on, like I was saying, you know, we have the almond industry has so much growth going on. I just want to help keep on supplying bees and making sure that we can keep this this almond industry moving. So I want to just keep growing. I'd like to just hopefully keep, I don't know if I can, but keep doubling in size every year if I could, you know, as much as I can, you know. So
that's awesome.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
It's a great story. And it's funny because, you know, even before I met you in person, I heard where you started from, very humble, you know, startup story. And then, you know, 13,000 hives, it's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
And,
how can people get a hold of you as far as contact you, learn more about bees, get business from you, or how do we get a hold of you?
Well, first off, the Ag Center, Instagram, obviously, Alex. Give me a call. I'm working on a website. I need to get that done. But yeah, give me a call. Follow me on Instagram. I'm always posting stuff of what I'm doing, so you can follow me and see what I got going on, and send me a message if you need some bees or have a question about bees or anything like that. So
yeah, and personally, Ethan supplied us with bees last year for our melon crop, and this year he's supplying for almonds. He'll supply us for our almonds, our cherries, and our melons this year. And, Ethan's always, like you said earlier, he's had a great line of communication with us, communicated when the bees are going to be there. And if there's any issues, like we need a spray, so he needs to move his hives, it's always been very responsive. So I would definitely recommend to reach out to Ethan if you need some beekeeping help. And if you have those other type of crops that aren't just almonds, that's where I think you could use the most help, because he's looking for a place for his bees to feed and work outside of just feeding them the supplementary products that he does feed them. So I definitely endorse him, and I suggest if you have a need to reach out, and I know for sure he'll take care of what you need.
Yep.
So let's get your digits.
209-596-0047. You can shoot me a text or call me. And like I was saying earlier, like he was saying earlier, I'm up all the time this time of year, so you can call me anytime. I'll probably answer.
Preferably at night.
Preferably at night.
So I want to touch base on one other thing.
Right.
Ethan, it's been a lot of fun to have you. And I think another good thing, I haven't talked to our marketing, but Ag Center University we have coming up, right? Ethan will be there. It's April 18th. And he'll be there as a mentor, maybe talking there. And I just challenge anybody who's listening to this, if you have kids 18 and above who are going to be in the ag industry, who are in college or looking to find a job, the Ag Center, the toast will be there. We're going to be having a really cool deal. Check it out at the Ag Center, www.theagcenter59.com, as well as on our Instagram. Going to be more coming out on that, but really we want to give back and educate young upcoming people on what's happening in ag. Just like today, we learned about bees. It was a lot of fun. Bees are important. They say they're the most important creature on the planet.
That's right.
Yes.
Besides me.
That's what they say. second to Dougie.
So yeah, Ethan, you are a stud. You're a hard worker.
Thank you.
Love your attitude. You're going to be a rock star in the future, and people should be happy and grateful to work with you if they're not. So
thank you. Appreciate that.
We're going to have a toast right now to Ethan. Keith, you want to do it?
Yeah. So here's a toast to healthy bees, big almond crops, and California ag, and young entrepreneurs in California ag. So cheers.
Cheers, boys.
Oh, cheers. Are you having water supply problems? If so, Water and Land Solutions can help. Water and Land Solutions is based on the ability to organize, manage, and understand the people they represent through effectively engaging with neighbors, regulators, agencies, and new partners to reach the stated goals and objectives. Water and Land Solutions are your go-to water experts. Reach out today at www.waterandlandsolutions.com.